Good day, everybody out there. You are welcome to Literature Hub 247. This is a literature channel where the arts and science of literature are discussed. Our discussion today is on a non-African poem written by Dylan Thomas, titled Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night. The poem is titled Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night. Before we discuss the poem, I want us to study an image here. This image is telling us many things about the poem we are about to appreciate. This is an aged man on his sick bed, surrounded by the children. So this poem is written by Dylan Thomas to honor his father, who had a lot of impact in making him what he was. He is only trying to urge his father and all these elderly people that they should not give in to death just like that. Let's go ahead and appreciate the poem. Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their hand know dark is right, because their words had fought no lightning day. Do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying out bright. Their afraid deeds might have danced in the green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. White men who caught the sun in flight, and learned too late the grave is on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death, who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, cause, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. That is the text of the poem. This is the short life history of Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas was born in Swansea, Wales, on October 27, 1914. He was a Welsh poet, short story writer, and playwright. He published his first book of poetry in 1934 after his grammar school in London, titled 18 Poems. Thematically, most of his poems contain elements of surrealism and personal fantasy. Some of his works are Deaths and Entrances, In Country Sleep, 25 Poems, The Map of Love. Do not go gentle into that good night. He died on the 9th November 1953 in New York as a result of excessive alcoholic drinks. Now, as I normally appreciate my own poem, I identify some difficult words and expressions as they are used in the poem, and I give them the poetic meaning, that is, the meaning according to the way the expressions are used in the poem. That's what we call contextual meaning in English language. But because this is a poem, I call it poetic meaning. The first one here is good night. According to the poem, it means death. Rave, it means protest. Close of day means death. Rage, fight. Delight means life. Grief means to feel sad. Grave men is referring to old people. Meteors. Meteors is a piece of rock in outer space that travels very fast and burns brightly as it enters the Earth's atmosphere. Gay is happy, that is, when one is happy. Fierce tears means emotional tears. So this is the contents of the poem, the interpretation of the poem. Dylan Thomas wrote this poem in respect of his lovely and dying father, who had a lot of influence in making him what he was. He doesn't want to lose his father to the cold act of death. So Dylan Thomas doesn't want his father to die just like that. That is normal as a human being. He thereby urges the father and the aged not to succumb to death easily. They should engage in battle with death. The father eventually died just before Christmas in 1952. So Thomas is here urging his father to fight death. That is, he should not give in to death just like that. Not only his father, he's also urging other aged people to do the same. The first line of the poem forms the title of the poem. Do not go gentle into that good night, quote unquote. This means that the aged should fight the battle of their lives with death, which they should not give in to death just like that. This is quoted from the poem. Quote, do not go gentle into that good night. Old age will burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light, unquote. Good night, quote unquote, is used metaphorically in the poem to mean death. He says that the aged should be more active and that death will find it difficult to snub life out of them easily. That is, if the aged people are so active that they fight death, that they don't give in just like that to death, that is, death might find it very difficult to kill them. The second stanza expresses the fear of the wise men about death, that it prevents them from displaying their wisdom to benefit humanity. It thereby urges them not to give in to death easily. So he's also sending messages to the wise men that people are benefiting from their wisdom, and that if they die just like that, that means people will not be able to benefit from them again. And he is thereby urging them to give death the last fight. Quote, though wise men at their hand know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night, unquote. The poet also expresses the grief of the good men. The poet also expresses the grief of the good men about death in the third stanza, that it will not allow them to continue doing good things to the people around them. He also urges the good men, because of this, not to give in to death so easily. Quote, good men, the last wave by, crying out bright, the afraid babes might have danced in the green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light, unquote. He expresses the grief of the white men in stanza 4 about death. Death deprives them from protecting their people. He also urges them to be bold and not give in to death so easily. He is also sending messages to white men that serve as security to their people to do the same. Quote, white men who cause sang the sun in flight and learn too late the grief eats on its way, do not go gentle into that good night, unquote. The aged dying men are called upon to be upright in stanza 5, sharpen their vision and fight the battle with death, not to surrender to death when it comes calling easily. Quote, grief men near death who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light, unquote. The last stanza is purely dedicated to his dying father, begging him to bless him at that moment and at the same time urging him not to succumb to the wishes of death easily, that he should fight the battle with death. Quote, "And you, my father, there on the sad height, cause, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." That is the interpretation of the content of the text of the poem. Now the themes of the poem. The subject matter of this poem is death, and it also serves as one of the themes. This is a major topic discussed in the poem, and it runs through the poem. Quote, that good night, unquote, is used metaphorically to mean death. The poet begs all categories of aged dying people not to give in to death or succumb to the cold fingers of death easily. Another one is defense. This is seen where the poet is urging the dying aged to stand on their feet, to try and defend themselves against the incursion of death. That is, they should defend themselves against the incursion of death. That they should not give in to death just like that. Grief. The poet expresses the grief and the lamentation of the wise men, the good men and the white men on death, that it will deprive them from performing their services to humanity. We also have the theme of blessing. The poet in the last stanza begs his father to bless him because he knows the benefits of one parent's blessing at that particular hour. Aging. The poet reflects the theme of aging by urging the elderly to fight death and not to surrender to death easily. Quote, rage, rage against the dying of the light, unquote. Now the poetic devices used in the poem. We have the use of refrain. This is the repetition of some lines of the poem in the stanzas. The device is used in the poem for emphasis and to call the attention of the people. Hence, it enriches the poem and brings about better understanding of the subject matter. This can also be called repetition. Metaphor. This is the comparison of two things without the use of like and as. The comparison here is direct. Quote, good night, close of day, dying of the light, as used in the poem, are metaphorically referring to death. Metonymy. This is the use of a characteristics of a thing or an object to identify it. Something related to it is used to identify the object or thing. Quote and unquote, old age, as used in the poem, is an example of metonymy, making reference to the elderly. We also have the use of simile. This is the comparison of two things with the use of as or like. It is used in line 2 of stanza 5. Quote, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Also, talking about the mode of the poem. This is the state of mind of the poet while composing his or her poem. That is the meaning of mode. Considering the content of the poem, we say that the poet doesn't want to lose his dying father and is making all forms of appeal. The mode is that of sadness. That is, the mode of the poem is that of sadness. Also, talking about the structure of the poem. The poem is in the form of a phalanel, which has 5 stanzas of a tercet, that is 3 lines each, followed by a quatrain, a stanza of 4 lines. It is structured by 2 repeating rhymes and 2 refrains, wherein the first line of the first stanza serves as the last line of the second and fourth stanzas, and the third line of the first stanza serves as the last line of the third and fifth stanzas. Now the language. The poet makes use of the appropriate figures of speech to bring home the subject matter. The language of a poem goes beyond whether it is simple or complex. It depends on the appropriate use of figures of speech and other poetic devices, which bring beauty and better understanding to the poem. What we are saying here is that when you are talking about the language of a poem, it goes beyond saying whether the language is simple or difficult. The language of a poem is referring to the poetic devices, figures of speech, different figures of speech that are used in the poem. So that is the language of the poem titled "Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night." That's how the poet has used the language there. He has made use of appropriate figures of speech to bring home the subject matter. Now, if you are new on this channel, you can subscribe by click on the subscription button there so that you have access to all my videos. And whenever I release any video, you have access to the video. And also, you can also invite your friend to join us on this channel. And if you have any question, just send your question through the message box under there, and I will rightly answer you immediately. And you can also share my video. You are free to share my video on any social media platform, be it Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, or any other. You can also visit my website, www.literaturehub247.com. Again, www.literaturehub247.com. There, I have my ebooks. When you search for that website, just click on Bookshop. Click on the Bookshop. This is my Bookshop page on the website. Here I have all my ebooks. This one contains past questions. That is 2021 past question. It covers WAEC and ECHO past question. And also this one is 2022 past questions, both for WAEC and ECHO. The questions are answered according to the guidelines of the two examining bodies. And this one contains the background knowledge to literature. That's general knowledge to literature. And this one also contains all the 12 poems, both African and non-African poems, and they are well appreciated, simplified. That's why it is titled Simplified Poetry. So this one is simplified drama and prose. It also contains all the drama text and the prose text recommended by WAEC and ECHO. And this one is 140 likely examination questions and answers. So all the ebooks are very useful for literature students. Just click on download and follow the instruction. Thank you and God bless.